So I got another one for my The Dust is International series. This woman says, Part 1. I am 49, so a proud Gen X woman who never let a man hit me. However, I fell into another kind of abuse. You can call me Allie for the story if you want. I met my ex-husband in Denver. I was traveling through, stopped to see my very good friend there, and while sitting on her porch, he walked by, and after a long conversation, I determined that he wasn't dangerous and was flirting with me. I don't always get it when someone is. Anyway, my dad, who wasn't the greatest, was actively dying in Pittsburgh at the time. We had a strained relationship, but I wanted to be there for him and try to forgive. So he went with me in my car to Pittsburgh, and we continued to New York City by bus from there. My brother and I were basically fighting over my dad's care. Basically, my dad neglected me because he had generational abuse by women. Not saying that made it okay, but he had a hard life and then made mine difficult by not being a positive male role model for me, and I dated lovers who neglected me as a result. My ex was no exception. So this was a traumatic time for me. I was putting on a brave face. The time came to take him off life support, and my ex was there. I forgot to mention he is Chinese from China, not American born. I think this does make a difference in culture and attitude. I am white, if it matters. Anyway, so because he was there for me, and then because he was family oriented, I thought I found my guy. I got pregnant. We moved to New York City and got married. I had my daughter, and we took a trip to his home city so they could meet her. I just want to say in China, female children are not desired because they think the girls are no longer part of their family once they marry and the grandchildren belong to that family. That is why so many girls are smamorted and they are having such a population problem. My ex's family was not like this. They were lovely, caring people, and they had a lot more good sense than my ex ever did. Let's call him Wu, not real family name. He is seen as irresponsible to his family. So while there, he tries to strong arm me into a teaching position there, telling me I didn't have to do it if I didn't want to. But when I didn't, he was so angry. Found out he had a university apartment set up and I was already in due to the connections. Instead, we went back to the United States. I had my son. As a husband, he was unhelpful, lazy, financially controlling, neglectful. He wanted me to do everything at home and work while he barely worked. We had SNAP, Medicaid, and Section 8. I got us all of these things at his insistence. He is an artist and he could make money if he wanted to by drawing tourists and painting. He is good at it. Two things about Wu that are important to know. He was looking for some kind of spirituality and does not respect women. He looked for and attracted wannabe gurus and brought them home. The first one was his friend I met in Colorado. Let's call him David, not real name. When we sat down to lunch, Wu told David he was going with me to Pittsburgh and then back to New York City, that we were together. David took one look at me. Mind you, I'm slim and attractive, not to toot my own horn, but I've been told I look like Barrymore a couple of times. And he says, What do you want to do that for? I honestly thought David was hot for my ex, but it turns out that wasn't it. David visited us in New York City, always making a nuisance of himself, especially when I was trying to breastfeed my daughter. She wouldn't latch, so I had to pump, which means my boobs were almost always out. So I hid in my room. The thing is, David had a Columbia professor for a dad and had tons of room to stay there, but he was always staying in our tiny apartment. One place we had no extra bed or blankets, but David and Wu, wanted to make that work. How? So I finally said, Hey, no problem. Me and the kids can sleep on the floor and you can have the bed. The cockroaches won't crawl on you up there. His girlfriend was the one to see reason and shut David down. Yes, I am a sarcastic bee. The last time I saw David, he was staying with us, waiting for Wu to get back from overseas while driving me bananas. Example, he talked like a baby and thought it was cute. He was obsessed with the movie Limitless. Guys find super drug and becomes the envy of all. So he was on ecstasy practically the whole time he was there. He offered to watch my kids for a few hours on my birthday. a nice gesture if he weren't on drugs. I said no. He was constantly offering unsolicited advice, tried to turn my stepdaughter and her mom against me. He used my phone to get on Facebook, and so when I went to check mine, it was on his messages. He was bragging to his girlfriend about how some woman found him attractive and wanted to do sexual things with her. I don't know if they had an open relationship, but she did not seem happy about it. He complained about my music in my house. Uh, the second was some Krishna guy he met and brought him over to our place for the weekend. When dude wasn't talking, there was a tape player of him talking. Told him my evergreen tree was dying because it was too hot in our apartment and told me I was killing the tree with my negativity. LOL, no kidding. This man was so full of himself. However, all of these people were men. Any spiritual philosophy from me was not good enough. That's the reason why I say the dust is global. Let's continue. Okay, Allie continues with, there was only one more, but unfortunately the worst was yet to come. The last one was a Chinese woman who practiced Falun Gong, which has a different name now. He invited her over when I was away with the kids visiting family. This woman inserted herself into our lives with his help. She was a professor at a community college and bragged about going to Harvard. She had a captive audience with him and my stepdaughter. I saw through her BS from the start. For instance, she would blather on and on about spiritual platitudes, but when I pressed her to tell me exactly what she meant, she couldn't tell me. This is a tactic cult leaders use. The statements could mean anything, and the human mind tries to find meaning, especially when they are intrigued. She cleaned the place, rearranging everything, took over my kitchen, went through my stuff. I would get her out, and he would bring her right back. She took over my daughter's room, so she had to sleep on my queen bed with me. Me and Wu hadn't slept in the same bed for years. The attraction to her was that she was trying to open a charter school for immigrant Chinese kids. They would stay there at the school, and she needed me to back it, and she wanted me to teach there. While all of this was going on, I found out she was married, had a half white, half Chinese daughter herself in Long Island. She only saw her about once a year. We lived in Brooklyn. It wasn't a long trip. So I have this Yoda looking bee in my house telling me how to raise my kids, telling me I am wrong about things I was teaching them. I felt like she wanted to ask to use my own kitchen. I'm sorry, I felt like she wanted me to ask to use my own kitchen. This bee was neglecting her own child the whole time because she thought her own husband was controlling, but mine was a sweet man. One thing about Wu is that he has tons of friends. People just love him. But the way he acted to us was so different than when he was with his friends. He thought I disliked this woman because she was Chinese. So he had his other Chinese friends meet her, and she tried to define reality for them and tell them what to paint. They said sarcastically that before they paint something, they will ask her for permission. She thought they meant it. She would tell me it didn't matter if I didn't want her there because he did, and he was the man and in charge. The next big fiasco was when she brought her friend to my apartment. She was an older schizophrenic lady, and Wu and the Fulong lady tried to convince me to take her in and take care of her. She paced, was paranoid, and talked to herself. My children were in grade school. It wasn't happening. Well, Fulong lady abandoned her there with me at my apartment. A friend from out of town just happened to be around, and I contacted her. He was an ex NYC detective that moved to the South. I told him how she came to be there, and he took her to the ER in Queens. This woman was a garbage hoarder, and later when she died in her apartment, Fulong lady and stepdaughter blamed me, of course. Gotta stop there, but there's more. Like I said, the dust is international. And what it sounds like as far as her husband, Wu, seems like he is missing something. And he is trying to fill that emptiness with friends and cult leaders and spiritual leaders rather than to fill it with companionship with his wife and children. Now, like she said, he is culturally from China and Chinese. So, they are very misogynistic there. So obviously, filling things with his wife is probably a no go, despite the fact that he likes this Fulong lady. Anyways, there shall be a part two. I will be back soon with that. But for right now, go ahead, jump in the comments. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, share.